All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, if you had asked me 3 years ago, in the middle of lockdown, whether we're still debating the origin of COVID, I would have said that you were nuts. Clearly, it would have been settled. And yet, March of 2023 may go down as one of the most significant times in COVID history, as when the truth actually began to come to light. For nearly 2 years, a stalemate was reached where people who were banned from social media for the lab leak theory had their accounts restored. The media basically ignored the reams of evidence and emails that showed a full-scale cover-up by Dr. Fauci, by Peter Daszak, the NIH, and the scientific community of lab leak, and it seemed that we would all just, quote, never know. But then, the Republicans actually won a slight majority in the House of Representatives. Things began to shift. The GOP had made it known it wasn't going to drop its investigation on Dr. Fauci and the origin of COVID. Thus, the intelligence community began to prepare documents they knew inevitably would be subpoenaed. Lo and behold, it turned out that for literally months, the Energy Department and the FBI were sitting on direct intelligence assessments that COVID did in fact leak from the lab. This was extraordinary, and yet met with the typical treatment by the media. Oh, it was only low confidence. Oh, but other intelligence agencies don't agree, as if all intel agencies are created equally. Again, it's worth noting that the Energy Department people who came up to this conclusion are the only ones tasked with actual lab safety. Perhaps even more unsurprising, the recent revelations have caused a supposedly retired Dr. Fauci to come out of hiding to defend his reputation and his life's work. Gain-of-function research. Fauci, we need to remember, was a chief proponent of gain-of-function research at the NIH. He personally overturned the Obama ban on gain-of-function. He funneled millions of dollars to his pet projects, to scientists across the United States, and to the Wuhan lab to not only continue it, but expand gain-of-function after the pandemic. The lab leak itself is not just about how COVID started, as important as that is. It's about protecting his scientific legacy. The idea that scientists can play God, that they can bioengineer viruses and engineer the cures for future pandemics. But as Dr. Redfield laid out, the former CDC director in his most recent testimony, gain-of-function has never, to his knowledge, been used to stop a pandemic. Instead, it most likely is the one that started one of the worst pandemics in modern history. Let's take a listen again.
So one other path of questioning for you, Dr. Redfield. Proponents of this research claim it may result in vaccines or maybe even stop a pandemic. Dr. Redfield, has gain-of-function created any life-saving vaccines or therapeutics to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge.
Has gain-of-function stopped a pandemic, in your opinion?
No, on the contrary, I think it probably caused the greatest pandemic our world has seen.
Do you find any tangible benefits to gain-of-function research at this time?
I personally don't, but I do want to stress, I think the men and women that support it are people of good faith because they truly believe it's going to lead to a potential benefit. I disagree with that assessment.
This, more than anything, was what Fauci could not stand, and his full-fledged media campaign immediately kicked into high gear. He played the game where he went on Fox to pretend he was going to get asked real questions, but picked host Neil Cavuto, who, I guess, let's just say, been very sympathetic to the Fauci throughout his tenure on Fox. Let's take a listen to that interview.
Take me out of the picture, Neil, and look at a whole array of virologists and scientists to do research that's absolutely critical for the health of the country. Some of that involves manipulating organisms. You want to call it gain of function. It really is not in many respects, but when it is, it needs to be very well regulated. If you shut off all gain of function research, did you get the flu shot this year, Neil? If you did, and you got it from an influenza vaccine, that was gain of function that made that influenza vaccine.
That is what it's all about. The entire thing is about protecting the scientific funding mechanism he created with his cronies and labs across this country. Conveniently is also used by big pharma companies, like he said, to create flu vaccines and other vaccines that are routinely taken by millions across this country. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. Something we have learned unequivocally, though, from all of this, you cannot trust them. You have to distrust, verify, look at the data that you've just verified, and then verify it's the real data to make sure that what they're telling you is real. And the real crescendo, though, of the Fauci media campaign came in his second home, CNN's Jim Acosta show on this weekend. Let's take a listen.
We've seen Elon Musk tweet that his pronouns, he's the owner of Twitter, that his pronouns are prosecute. Fauci, others in the GOP have talked about arresting you and prosecuting you for your handling of COVID. What's your response to that, your response to Musk, and what has that been like for your family?
Well, I mean, there's no response to that craziness, Jim. I mean, prosecute me for what? What are they talking about? I mean, I wish I could figure out what the heck they were talking about. I think they're just going off the deep end. That's the answer to your first question. It doesn't make any sense to say something like that, and it actually is irresponsible. Of course, it's going to have a difficult effect and a deleterious effect on my family. I mean, they don't like to have me getting death threats all the time. Every time somebody gets up and spouts some nonsense that's misinformation, disinformation, and outright lies, somebody somewhere decides they want to do harm to me and or my family.
As always, Acosta is too low IQ to ask a real question, and Fauci plays the lowest card, conflating criticism of him with the safety of his family. Now, of course, if crazy people want to actually attack Fauci, that's bad. But you can't blame pressing him for questions on one of the most significant events of the century on attacks on him. As for prosecuting, last time I checked, lying to Congress under oath is actually a crime. And if you recall his myriad exchanges under oath with Rand Paul, he pretty much is dead to rights a liar in trying to say he never funded gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab or anywhere. This is the ultimate canard. He never funded gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab. But as he says on Fox, but did you know that gain-of-function is vital for the flu shot? Which is it? Do you defend it or not? He won't say it. And he'll never take an interview that it seems where somebody knows the difference or even the time to really get into the weeds on that question. But shouldn't mistake that as well as Fauci not being on the defensive. As you saw with his most recent appearance on Anderson Cooper, the Energy Department's conclusion has actually forced even them to ask him about it. The more actual raw information that comes to light, like the emails that show he prompted the initial cover-up and the intel agencies coming to the conclusion it was a lab leak, he has to answer questions. He is now using the years of false capital that he built up during the pandemic to do what any egomaniac like him wants. He wants to die a hero, lionized by the press, a savior when he may be the pandemic's biggest villain. Crystal, actually, the House of Representatives just voted yesterday to declassify.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.